Your Excellencies, esteemed religious leaders, ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to the closing session of the G20 Interfaith Forum in 2020. It is my great honor to introduce to you our moderators for this session, Professor Catherine Marshall, Vice President of the G20 Interfaith Association, who will be moderating the session together with Professor Mohammed Abu Nimr, Senior Advisor of the Qaisid International Dialogue Center. Professor Abu Nimr, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marlene. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back. I started this meeting with you 5 days ago, and I'm delighted and really eager to see us coming to the closing of this event. Maybe a best way to start with it is to do the short video summary of 2-3 minutes that we've prepared here that try to capture some samples of what we have. Please play the video.
Leaders, policymakers, and experts have gathered virtually at the G20 Interfaith Forum to confront the rising challenges of poverty, hunger, inequality, a global pandemic, and climate change. The forum is the culmination of months of regional consultations, which included participants from 70 countries and 5 continents. Together, these leaders are answering the call of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, proposing solutions to the most intractable issues facing humanity.
We, as religious leaders, in particular, need to be a contagion of hope. Let us then witness to our religious communities, as well to our societies in which we live, unity, solidarity and fraternity.
إن عالمنا أحوج ما يكون إلى منطق الاحترام والعدالة الشاملة، ولا يكون ذلك إلا من خلال تعزيز قيمنا المشتركة التي ترفض أي شكل من أشكال الكراهية والعنصرية والتمييز على أساس ديني أو عرقي أو أي تصنيف آخر مماثل.
In a world where over 80% of humanity identifies with a spiritual tradition, the need for faith leaders to be integrated into global development agendas cannot be ignored.
There is strength in diversity, and we need solidarity now. All of you represent that understanding and the values that are so deeply rooted in all faiths.
The findings of the forum, currently being compiled and finalized, will be considered by world leaders assembling soon for the G20 summit.
Good afternoon, good morning to all. Welcome to the final session where we will be looking at some of the highlights of what has happened during the past 5 days, what is going to happen in the next month, and then where we go from here. So I welcome to this discussion Dr. Al-Muaid, who has very nobly and ably recognized or represented the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia during this extraordinarily complex period. My friend and colleague, His Excellency Faisal, who of course has played a very central role. We'll hear from the Saudi Sherpa, who will guide us in the directions that the government will be taking. And then finally, we will turn to the future beyond Saudi Arabia's presidency of the G20, looking to what's going to happen in 2021 in Italy. Mohammed, over to you.
That's indeed our schedule. Let's start with beginning with a local, with the host of our G20 Interfaith Summit this year. And that's it's a video message from Dr. Fahd Al-Mubarak, who's a state minister and member of the Saudi Council of Ministers, and he's also acting as the main coordinator and Sherpa for the G20 formal meeting this year. The video, please. Thank you.
Good evening, Your Excellencies, esteemed delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by thanking you, Your Excellency, Mr. Faisal bin Muammar, Secretary General of King Abdullah bin Abdul Aziz International Center for Interreligious and Intercultural Dialogue. And I'd like to thank you for inviting me to this Interfaith 20 Summit. I'm also thankful to Dr. Abdullah Al-Hamayyid, Secretary General of National Committee for Interfaith and Intercultural Dialogue. I'd like to first congratulate you on convening this summit despite this challenging year. You have done a tremendous job throughout the year, especially in highlighting one of the three pillars of the Saudi G20 agenda, which is empowering people. Through your working groups, you have been discussing important elements such as children and youth, reducing poverty and inequality, health and well-being, and many more. The Saudi presidency inaugurated its presidency year with an ambitious program with three aims: empowering people, safeguarding the planet, and shaping new frontiers, under one unifying theme, which is realizing opportunities of the 21st century for all people in all countries. Although this COVID-19 pandemic unveiled and during the first or the second quarter of this year, we were determined to sail through together to achieve our agenda. The G20 was originally created to tackle challenges and crises of the world, starting back in 2008 on the financial crisis. However, this pandemic is different. It does not only have economic effect, it also has a human impact on people's lives and livelihood. His Majesty, the custodian of the two holy mosques, King Salman bin Abdul Aziz, have invited and called leaders of the world's largest economies to a summit back in March 2020 in order to address the current pandemic. The leaders came together showcasing strength, solidarity, and cooperation. The summit resulted in many great outcomes, including unprecedented stimulus of over $11 trillion into the global economy. It also contributed over $21 billion to support the development of vaccine, where Saudi Arabia have contributed $500 million as part of that pledge. It also launched a debt relief initiative that would allow 73 eligible countries to reallocate over $20 billion toward their imminent health and financial crisis. Also, the leaders have committed to ensuring the flow of vital medical supplies and critical agricultural products across borders. There are many other outcomes from the summit and the following ministerial meetings that I invite you all to review declaration that has been issued in our website. It has been a challenging year, yet we have not forgotten our original agenda that was announced in 1st of December 2019. And therefore, we've been very busy this year, and we have held 23 ministerial meetings, 11 of which were extraordinary meetings to address the COVID impact on our society, economy, and livelihoods. We held 5 Sherpa meetings, including an extraordinary meeting, and we have one next week also. 73 working groups and 42 side events to complement the work of the working groups and the work streams. We also produced 11 statements and 4 communiques, all of this in addition to the Leaders Summit back in March 2020. In the next few weeks toward the summit, we are going to hold 2 ministerial meetings, the 4th Finance Ministers and Central Bank Governors meeting, as well as the anti-corruption ministerial meetings. We also had an active year for our 8 official engagement groups this year. More than 50 individual statements, 15 joint reports, and countless meetings, developing thoughts and ideas and recommendations that are submitted to the leaders. We are very grateful to theirs and your work. This year, we are aiming to achieve the ambitions of His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and we have many outcomes that we will be announcing also again in our Leaders' Declaration. That includes the adaptation of circular carbon economy platform. For the first time in the history of G20, where a comprehensive framework that tackles carbon emission from all angles, mitigation and adaptations, to reduce, remove, reuse the carbons from the air. Also, we launched G20 Youth Roadmap, G20 initiative to reduce land aggregations and habitat loss, coral reef preservation. So nature has been in the middle and center of our deliberation. The Riyadh initiatives on the future of WTO to assure the flow of goods across border. The G20 action plan set out the key principle guiding our response and commitments that was produced by the finance ministers and central bank governors. Also, the debt service suspension initiative. And there are many, many other initiatives that has been launched this year that invite you to review them in our website. We are all stakeholders in this international system, and it calls upon us all to invest in the success of this historical year summit. With less than 2 months left, we are in the final stages of preparing for the Leaders' Summit. The Saudi Presidency Summit will have a strong overreaching focus. We will be addressing issues like rising to the challenge together, building a resilient and long-lasting recovery, ensuring an inclusive recovery that tackles inequality, putting sustainability at the heart of recovery, all of the above underpinned by empowering people, safeguarding the planet, and shaping new frontiers. I'd like to thank you again for inviting me to represent the G20 to share with you our past progress and our future plans for the summit. I wish you a very successful summit this year, and thank you for working throughout this pandemic situation and presenting your recommendation. Thank you very much.
And thank you for this very rich background that situates the work that we're doing within the broader context of the overall G20 agenda under the presidency of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Let me now turn to His Excellency Faisal bin Muammar. Give us your sense of what this remarkable 5 days has brought together, and what surprises? What conclusions have you drawn from it?
You are one of us who join us in this journey. To start with, I would like to acknowledge the immense effort of the past 5 days. I would like to extend my sincere thanks to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and to the custodian of the 2 holy mosques, King Salman bin Abdul Aziz Al Saud, and to the Crown Prince, His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, for their leadership of the G20 process. I am also immensely grateful to them for their steadfast support to the interfaith dialogue and for enabling KAICEED to do the work we do in building bridges between followers of different religions and cultures. This year, the G20 has been called upon to deliver solutions to address some of the most serious problems our societies have ever confronted. I thank the G20 Secretariat here in Riyadh for their support and tremendous effort toward making this possible. To our partners, Mr. Moratinos, my dear friend, and his team at the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, and to Professor Cole Derham, and to you, Dr. Catherine Marshall, and his team at the G20 Interfaith Forum Association, my sincere thanks. And of course, it is a pleasure to conclude this event here from Riyadh, the host of the G20 Summit 2020, with my co-panelist, Dr. Abdullah Al-Humaid, and the National Committee for Interfaith and Intercultural Dialogue. Your support in organizing this event has been invaluable. And a special thanks to our team at KAICEED Dialogue Center. You did an amazing job in really bringing this live to everybody, and it was the most successful event I ever attended. As I have said before, the road to Riyadh, did not start with this event. Over the past 6 months, hundreds of participants have joined us in 6 regional consultations. The recommendations from those meetings have been deliberated and collected by members of the G20 Interfaith Task Forces, working according to the themes of the G20 Summit in November. All these experts, policymakers, and religious leaders have given their time, expertise, and commitment to this process, freely and in the middle of a pandemic. I thank them for all their contribution. Their work has resulted in an impressive collection of concrete, workable recommendations for policymakers on the global problems of our time: COVID, inequality, inclusion, climate change, and safeguarding of religious sites. Thank you also to the more than 2,000 participants who have joined us from over 90 countries over the past 5 days. Your active participation has enriched our work and is testament of the enormous importance of representation of religious communities to the global landscape. When we started this process, we knew that what we were doing was difficult and that it was important. However, we did not realize how difficult and how important until the world plunged into possibly the greatest global crisis it has known since 1945. COVID-19 has shown us that the world is more interconnected than we think, that our societies are more fragile than we think, that our economies and our progress are less secure than we think. The past 5 days, as well as the months leading up to this G20 Interfaith Forum, have shown us the global cooperation and solidarity are more important than ever before. As we ask ourselves, how do we build a more inclusive, more equitable world? Religion and religious actors remain at the heart of the answer. Over the past 5 days, we have seen evidence from all corners of the world that religious leaders are instrumental in building a better world. Religious communities are promoting strong, inclusive, green, and sustainable economies based on sharing and collaboration. They can be instrumental in educating for equality, inclusion, and respect. They can advocate for considering the impact of actions on others. They are already contributing to the ending poverty and are advocating for access to basic services for all. In partnership with policymakers and civil societies, they can be and are often powerful advocates for common citizenship, good governance, tolerance, and reconciliation. They are unique allies in efforts to build safe, inclusive, and peaceful societies. Her Excellency Aminata, the former Prime Minister of Senegal, spoke of faith actors coming to secure of multilateralism. Cardinal Ayuso spoke of contagion of hope from religious actors. I support their calls for greater recognition by policymakers of the potential of religious actors to chart a better path. The G20 Interfaith Forum has demonstrated vast breadth and scope of work carried out by religious actors. I would like to reiterate my call to the current host of the G20 Summit, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, my country, and the next host, the Italian Republic, to acknowledge this contribution by recognizing interfaith collaboration as a formal engagement group to the G20 process. I would also call for the establishment of formal and informal engagement mechanism to ensure sustainable cooperation between policymakers and religious actors in each country. This type of formal engagement is also integral to preventing the manipulation of religion identities for the promotion of political agendas. CAICID has supported the development of interfaith platform in each of its focus countries, which provide a formal space for religious actors to collaborate in an interfaith setting with state and policy actors. The model should be formalized, strengthened, and adopted in each country. In conclusion, I would like to reaffirm the vital importance of a closer connection between religious leaders and policymakers. As my friend Mr. Moratino stated, there is a need for convergence between faith actors and state actors. Investment and dialogue is needed to build these bridges. CAICID stands with the interfaith community and United Nations and is committed to working with both these actors through training, capacity buildings, consultations, and advocacy. Thank you very much. Dr. Catherine.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for sharing with us a few of the major lessons that we had from those 5 days, as well from the regional meeting, as well expressing your commitment and CAICID commitment to continue with this process as well as we did before. Allow me to stay with the host country and with our local partner, the National Committee for Dialogue, Dr. Abdullah Al-Humaid, a colleague and a friend, who has been also with us since we began the planning for this event. Dr. Abdullah Al-Humaid, the floor is yours to share with us some notes and reflection before we move to Italy.
Well, thank you, Dr. Mohammed, and thank you for everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I would like to begin by expressing my gratitude to the custodian of the two holy mosques, King Salman bin Abdulaziz, and His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, for their boundless support of the work of the National Interfaith, Intercultural, the Committee for Interfaith and Intercultural Dialogue. and for hosting the 2020 G20 Interfaith Forum. I also would like to thank the members of the National Committee for Interfaith and Intercultural Dialogue for their good advice during the preparation for this event. On behalf of the National Committee for Interfaith and Intercultural Dialogue, as the local partner in organizing this event, the G20 Interfaith Forum in Riyadh, I would like to express my sincere thanks to King Abdullah International Center for Interreligious Intercultural Dialogue, the G20 Interfaith Association, and the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations for their efforts and support. Special thanks go to His Excellency Mr. Faisal bin Ma'amar, KCID's Secretary General and the chairperson of the Executive Steering Committee for the 2020 G20 Interfaith Forum. He had initiated the idea of holding this forum in Riyadh with the Saudi G20 Secretariat, coordinated the efforts of our international partners, and supervised the logistical efforts at the local level. When the National Committee for Interfaith Intercultural Dialogue was conceived back in 2015, the Saudi decision makers had in mind a global event like the G20 Interfaith Forum that we are holding right now. Speakers and participants from over 90 countries with diverse religious and cultural ethnic background congregating to speak about and discuss global challenges make this event a truly global event. The speakers, as well as the participants in this forum, have discussed and provided policy recommendations on the most pressing issues facing the world today. And that includes poverty, COVID-19, climate change, inequality, and hate speech, just to name the few. Such diversity of participants and wide range of issues discussed in this event make hosting the 2020 G20 Interfaith Forum a major milestone in the implementation of the Kingdom's initiative to promote interfaith and intercultural dialogue on the world stage. We were hoping that the G20 Interfaith Forum would be held physically in Riyadh this year, so you can observe the positive cultural developments in my country, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, has witnessed during the last 3 years. But unfortunately, it has been held virtually due to the pandemic of COVID-19. It has been emphasized during the last 5 days that the strength of religious leaders and institutions comes from their work at the grassroots levels, and this is true. However, in order for such localized knowledge and experiences to capture the attention of the policymakers, they have to be articulated in a way that makes the recommendations of this forum more politically relevant, but without losing their moral and spiritual grounds. This, in turn, could be the path for integrating the G20 Interfaith Forum into the G20 policy networks. And I meant the designation of the G20 Interfaith Forum as a formal engagement group. Once again, thank you, and I wish our Italian colleagues the best of luck in organizing the 2021 G20 Interfaith Forum. Thank you and take care.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abdullah. I have to say how much we appreciate your unflappable handling of this extraordinary roller coaster year where we faced daily uncertainties and where you have helped us to navigate and to come to this point. So let us now to the next host for the G20, which is Italy. And we will hear first from a colleague, long-standing colleague, Dr. Alberto Meloni. Dr. Meloni.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the host country for the immense work that has been done. And we have all appreciated in the past days following the panels and the plenary sessions of this unusual way of celebrating the Interfaith Forum. For next year, Bologna is waiting for you. And for all the people who like to follow and take part into the next Interfaith Forum, we are now working a bit about the date. It will probably June, but mostly we are thinking about a way to make the Bologna Forum, so to say, compatible and coherent with the history of this country and this city that, as you know, is the place where the first European university was founded some 9th century and something years ago. What we think is that the opportunity of the Italian G20 Forum is to adopt a specific approach, namely to reflect on the theological implication, historical implication, and juridical implication of what is interreligious dialogue. Strictly, one may say that religions as such do not exist if there is they exist only when a real man, a real woman, a human being adopt a faith as something driving his or her own life. And so interreligious dialogue is a way in which religious people, believers and non-believers, can take into consideration the immense depths of their freedom in adopting the faith, the innermost depth in which the disobedience to religion takes place, and the challenge representing from the demanding and liberating duty of accepting a revelation and its rules. For this reason, we think that religious knows that religious dialogue is an act of responsibility. Responsibility to take up the story of tragedy and the story of compassion that each religious family bring. We are all used to know the usual register of interreligious dialogue, speaking of something that is very true and very important, namely that there is a use of religion and an abuse of religion, and that the abuse of religion is something that at the global level must be considered in a very profound way. But we also know that in this interreligious dialogue, there is also the risk to depict an unreal world in which religions come up on the scene without a past, and on the contrary, all the religious families familiar with the Bible know that the first crime was made around an altar and not far from an altar. And so to speak about interreligious dialogue means to speak about this responsibility of the person adopting religious ideas, doctrines, texts, worships, rules, and to use this for decreasing violence and increasing peace, for decreasing discrimination and increasing compassion and understanding. For this reason, we think that there is a role coming from religious leaders as such. But the G20 tells us to consider also other players around this scene, namely political leaders, economical actors, and scholars. Scholars who are the one who can remember that there was a time in which each religious family has a different approach to diversity and a different mentality that could be inspiring for refraining from the same error or for repeating the same virtue. So the Interfaith Forum is a very important moment to say that religious people is accepting this responsibility, and we hope that in Bologna we can work and discuss on this at the same high level that we have experienced in the past days of panels and plenary sessions in Riyadh. The G20 is a forum in which the great country with greater responsibility is taking the floor and opening a discussion of the sustainable goals and the human goals of our planet. But for the Interfaith Forum, it is also a way to give a voice to the voiceless and to speak for other brothers and sisters who are not in the G20, who are in the G1000 of cultures, countries, cities in which there is the same hope for peace and the same hope of understanding that we want to represent. And so the IF20 could be an opportunity, and we hope that Bologna will be capable to do this, to offer the support to a multilateral, international, global dialogue, and also to offer to the G20 some useful insight. As you know, we have been in the past edition of the G20 Interfaith Forum, and in this so important and successful Riyadh Interfaith Forum, we have been careful in trying to offer to the G20 leaders positions and consideration that can be fertile for their discussion. But we are also conscious that there are specific issues that come from religions, and we hope that the logical reflection that we can develop from here to next year in Bologna can be important also for them. The IF20 of Bologna will offer the opportunity, I hope, to all the participants to discuss on what is dialogue. We have to open a dialogue on dialogue. Everybody knows the position that Hans Küng developed in the 80s and in the 90s. The idea that there was a Veltatus, a standard ethic, compatible and derived from all and different religious traditions. I'm not on this way. I think that we must reflect on another issue, namely to discuss how each religious tradition is capable to root inside its own revelation, inside its own doctrinal treasure, the reason for understanding the other, for respecting the other, for making of the other a brother and a sister. And so this will be one of the points that we want to submit to you for the next G20 forum, namely to come with a strong position encouraging the different religious traditions to take their own responsibility and to offer proper insights to everybody. Bologna is not, in this case, a neutral city. It is not in Holy Land like Riyadh, but is in a land of knowledge that is, to a certain extent, sacred by the research for the truth made by thousands of scholars and students coming and looking for a better future and more profound knowledge of different disciplines. Bologna has been a city of intolerance and a city of tolerance, a city of war. You will not see anymore the walls made to wage the war against Ferrara, but it's also been a city of peace, and we hope that living a few days in this city, you will experience the same idea of a path going from violence to understanding. And so we do hope that you can share with us the event next year in Italy, and on behalf of the city of Bologna, on the Italian presidency, we would be very honored to have all of you as guests of us in Bologna next year. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Maloney. We'll come back to you about those interesting suggestions you made, but thank you for the welcoming remarks to Bologna for next year. We'll go now. We were with the Professor Maloney from an academic and scholarly theological institute. Now, our other host will be, I think, Cardinal Zubi from Bologna as well, who will also deliver a message for us here. Here's the message.
Un saluto da Bologna, a un incontro che per noi è tanto importante e era naturale che Bologna venisse a Riyadh per questa occasione del forum Interfaith del G20 e che possa rivolgere a voi tutti un saluto della mia personale vicinanza in un incontro davvero così importante, in un momento così importante nel quale i credenti si interrogano insieme, sforzano di incontrarsi e potremmo dire davvero il contrario alla pandemia. La pandemia divide, il male che divide tutti, un incontro come questo è che tutti sono uniti per cercare assieme il bene. Noi infatti crediamo non allo scontro ma al dialogo ed siamo all'inizio di questo dialogo, non è certamente il primo, c'è una storia che ci precede, ma una storia oggettivamente ancora molto breve, che ha tanto bisogno di crescere e che si deve confrontare contro tanti nemici, ma oggi il vero nemico è la pandemia della guerra. Non è soltanto la pandemia del Covid-19, ci sono tante pandemie, quella della guerra è quella su cui ci dobbiamo confrontare. Per me, come cristiano, il fatto che ci sia un G20 di 20 paesi di credenti che si trovano per discutere assieme, per guardare assieme le sfide del mondo e soprattutto per cercare la pace è un motivo di grande soddisfazione. Insieme ad Alberto Melloni, che prepara questo incontro, l'anno prossimo vi aspettiamo a Bologna. È la nostra speranza, sempre Covid permettendo e nella convinzione che si possa sconfiggere la pandemia, stiamo preparando l'incontro, questo stesso incontro del G20 qui a Bologna. Bologna è la città dell'incontro, è l'università più antica dell'Europa, dove da sempre tanti sono venuti per conoscere e conoscersi, e quindi qui è un luogo del dialogo, di relazioni internazionali, dove cercare assieme di capire i segni di pace e i segni di guerra, per essere saldi tutti nel pregare per la pace, nel fare penitenza per la pace, nell'operare per la pace, nel trovare il tanto che ci unisce. Quello che ci unisce infatti non è poco, qualche volta possiamo pensare che c'è tantissima diversità e poi c'è un pezzettino che ci unisce. Pensiamo di no, ciò che ci unisce è che tutti possiamo trovare nelle tradizioni a cui apparteniamo la ragione del rispetto e dell'amicizia verso l'altro, e chi non sa trovare nella propria fede le ragioni dell'altro non ha una fede, ma una ideologia che può pretendere di parlare in nome di Dio, ma in realtà è la voce del divisore, perché nella nostra fede, nella fede di ciascuno, siamo tutti sempre invitati a capire le ragioni dell'altro e quindi a incontrare l'altro. A Bologna chiederemo a teologi, politici, a pastori, a studiosi di farci avanzare, perché la ricerca della pace deve crescere e dobbiamo essere ancora più forti, dobbiamo davvero vivere una unità, una conoscenza, e G20 rappresenta davvero tanta parte della nostra casa comune. Per poter fissare in pochi punti le cose essenziali con le quali possiamo camminare insieme nella fraternità e nella pace giusta. La pandemia non è mai giusta, la pandemia della guerra non è mai giusta, non esiste, l'unica cosa giusta è la pace, è l'unica cosa giusta e la fraternità è ciò che prepara la pace ed evita la guerra. Saranno giorni di tanta fraternità, di tanta conoscenza, di tanto dialogo e quindi vi aspettiamo con gioia l'anno prossimo.
I think that this gives us a hint both of the practical plans, but also of the spirit that's we have in store for Italy and for Bologna. Now we turn back to this year, to the month ahead. And I'd like to ask Faisal what he sees as the steps that we have. I do need to express our enormous admiration and respect for the extraordinary efforts that he personally has devoted. He's attended every one of the regional meetings and followed everything very closely, but also the CAICID team, which has worked, you can imagine, extraordinary hours to make this happen. So, Faisal, what do you see coming next?
You and Dr. Cole and our brother, Mr. Martinez, we can organize an Olympic team, to play to defend all these activities we did. What we are eager to do is to follow up really what we have done. We've been working the whole year of 2020, although it was really very difficult year and it was not easy to connect with people. Our wish it was to have a physical meeting. The situation was not easy, and because of the joint collaboration between the partners and between us, we managed really to do the whole consultation event and also the final, and I believe it's very successful according to the registration of participants and also speakers from almost 90 countries. It's really amazing success. So what is the next step? The next step is going to be, we will finalize our recommendations and all the portfolio of what we had discussed during the consultation events, and the final one we are going to agree. We will have our meeting with you and the partners to finalize the report, which we are hoping to submit it to the G20 Secretariat. Our hope is that also, and that's what we are witnessing now from the G20 Secretariat in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They are supporting us, and we can see that Dr. Fahd al-Mubarak today, he honored us by joining the final or the closing of this forum, and also they are waiting for us to write the final report and to send it to them, and I'm sure it will be they will look at it with the very important attention. That's really the next step. So we are also hoping that through these recommendations, our top priority now in this issue is to have a recognition of this forum as an official engagement group, and hopefully by working with the Saudi G20 Secretariat, maybe we can do the needed work or needed applications, and then we go from there to Italy. because we are looking forward to join our friends in Bologna, and as we listen to them, it's very exciting to look forward in attending the event next year in Bologna. Hopefully, after also we defeat this pandemic, and the whole world will be safe from this pandemic, so we can do the event physically, and we can meet face to face with our friends from all over the world.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for clarifying the way forward as well. Maybe we can go back to you, Professor Meloni. You come from a theological institute and from a university, and in your introduction you talked about next year plan, really more to know the other. You said from dialogue on dialogue, as well as you said voice to the voiceless. And you also said the city is city of intolerance and tolerance. I was intrigued by that, and I plan to ask you more about what do you think the role of theology and religious institutions in advancing the G20. As you know, the model we used here in Kaisid, as well as with our partners in the G20, is really to maybe avoid theology and talk more about dialogue of life, something that we focus more on voice to the voiceless. So how do you envision this relationship as somebody who works in theology as well? Briefly, please.
I belong to a generation in which the most famous prophet was John Lennon, and the idea that the world of the future would have been a world without religions. On the contrary, we see that religions are playing a great role, and religious people playing a great role, and at the same time we see that religious illiteracy is growing. More and more fundamentalism, integrism, intolerance can be nurtured by simplistic ideas about religious traditions and doctrines. And so what I think is that there is a specific responsibility of scholarship that is to offer to everybody the instrument and the tools capable to derive from different tradition the attitude of dialogue and tolerance that Cardinal Zuppi was mentioning. And even on this level, I think there is a dialogue about historians, scholars, lawyers, sociologists, psychologists, which is very necessary in order to offer a solid basis to the dialogue. And I think that in this, all the G20 leaders may understand that the idea that there is a simplistic world in which there is a secular neutral space, and there are around this space the house of the believer is simply unrealistic and untrue. Believers and non-believers are sharing the same space, and they can use it to have an encounter or to have a clash. And so the responsibility of everybody is to go in this direction, and the scholarship can be a proper and a powerful tool in this.
Thank you. Let's go back to Dr. Abdallah and ask if you have some advice or one piece of advice for your Italian colleagues, apart from not having a pandemic. What would spring to your mind after spending this year focused on the G20 Interfaith Forum?
Well, thank you, Catherine. That was really a good question, because I am not sure if we, for us here in Riyadh, if we had a local event, or if we were local organizers, because most of our work was actually done online. And with this advancement of information technologies, distance and physical location become increasingly irrelevant. We learned a few good lessons from this experience, and maybe our Italian colleagues could benefit from our experience. The use of information technology was actually very helpful in organizing such event, especially when it comes to the issue of access. Some of the participants or speakers may not be able to attend physically for either financial reasons or health reasons, but they could participate online. And my suggestion is that our Italian colleagues could think of holding a hybrid model for the next the G20 Interfaith Forum, where a lot of people would be given the opportunity to take part in this event without going through the hardship, whether physically or financially. So that's maybe the most important lesson that we learned from this experience, and I think it opens other opportunities for our friends in Italy and somewhere else. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, and again, our deep appreciation for your generosity and openness, and the dream of having the kind of event that we had spoken of is still very much alive in our minds. Now, Mohammed and I have been invited to give a very few first reflections on what we drew from this. I want to emphasize that this is a continuing process, and what we have seen, even with the extraordinary efforts of the last few days, is the tip of the iceberg of the kind of work that the network of networks of religious, cultural, traditional institutions are doing in every corner of the world. You saw a fraction of it. And each one of the topics that was discussed here will be continued over the months and the years ahead. Specifically, I think we've seen very much the reality of the dangers and the opportunities in a crisis. We saw and we heard about the grief and the turmoil that is facing so many people in so many corners of the world. Sometimes it seemed far away as we looked at our screens. I also wonder sometimes whether many people don't realize the full impact of the projections we're seeing of economic contraction, of vulnerability of so many, of the loss of jobs, the extraordinary impact of most of the world's children losing time in education. We've been reminded of vulnerabilities, deep vulnerabilities, which I think we see, or I certainly see, as the primary mandate, mission of the religious communities to hear their voices and to lead to action. The inequalities in the world are stark, and the COVID pandemic has made them so much clearer. Clearly, the religious communities have countless specific ideas, recommendations, and proposals, which are being put together from the regional consultations and from continuing working groups that the Interfaith Association is working on. There are a couple that I think are very important. In what I'm seeing and reading, the way out of this crisis is tied closely to the development, testing, and diffusion of the vaccine. And it seems clear that without the support of religious leaders, without the support of religious communities, that kind of extraordinary global effort cannot happen. So that is an example of a specific area. And in terms of the prophetic voice, which we look to, fighting corruption, yes, pointing to the vulnerable groups, but more broadly, looking to the kind of world that we are dreaming of working towards, is one of the primary responsibilities of these religious communities. And so as we say, la lucha continua, we're at the beginning, in the middle, the beginning of the end, but clearly we have major work ahead of us. The insights and wisdom that we've heard here offer extraordinary proof of the value of the substantive work, but also of the many gaps in knowledge and the need for us to look ahead. So thank you.
Thank you, Catherine, for your reflection. It's certainly been a pleasure to be with you in the planning of this. So I'll follow your path, but I will not go into any of the topics, messages, because I think we've heard the 5 days of diagnostics and 5 days of looking at the scope of the problem. I want to say that we started in the planning for 13 months ago here in Kaisid as well with you. We had in mind the physical, historical meeting with multi-faith leaders for the first time with policymakers in Riyadh. We wanted to send the message that there is an important constructive role for religious institutions and actors to play in responding to the challenges facing not only the G20 governments, but the global leadership in general. Although we could not meet physically, but we certainly delivered the message via platform. Let me address the three usually tension areas in this field of interreligious and interfaith work with development and peace. And we see them in the chat. We saw them, we heard many of the 150 speakers refer to them. The first one is really the tension of policy and change. Our work is not done here, as you said, obviously. We have a long way ahead of us to ensure that the message from this gathering will reach the relevant policy makers and will be considered in their ongoing deliberation. The second tension usually, so this is the policy and change and how effective we are. The second one has to do with sustainability. I also must say to everyone who emphasized the need to change in policy and for actions and outcomes, always everyone almost told us we need to be with actions and outcome. That the nature of our work is cumulative. We realize that we need to be consistent and persistent in our engagement with policymakers, not only one conference a year, and certainly continue beyond that. This is a crucial message for our messages to be heard and to be taken seriously. The third tension area is this notion of commonalities. We need always to focus on our commonalities. And not necessarily the different opinion that we might have or diversity. The outcome of our discussion, whether it is a set of recommendations, policy briefing, or public presentations produced in regional meeting or a global forum, these are all important contributions to the accumulative knowledge and expertise in building sustained and effective platform of G20 interfaith that is capable of serving the objectives of all stakeholders in the field of religion, development, and peace. We want the G20 platform interfaith to be effective in that sense and want it to be sustainable. But we also, I hope, certainly hope that this work will continue to aspire to serve the common goals of all the stakeholders in the field and succeed in avoiding the traps and the pressure of pursuing goals of selective organizations, individuals, or government. And that's, I think, crucial for any mega work that Catherine was referring to. The last tension is really the message of inclusivity. The message we continuously heard from the 150 speakers or so and hundreds of participants in the regional meeting and over 3,000 or 2,000 here in this panel, 2,000 to 8,000 I have heard number here, were underlined by the principle that the G20 interfaith platform relevancy, effectiveness, and success are conditioned by implementing its aim to be inclusive in terms of religion, race, gender, ethnicity, and region, and other forms of diversity. And also to focus on common global agenda and issues of interfaith, multi-faith, and faith-based organization. This is the process that began in Australia, Turkey, Germany, Argentina, Japan, and now 2020 is concluding in Saudi Arabia, and inshallah next year in Italy it will be also inclusive and even aspire to more inclusivity. As a member of the planning committee and the focal point at CAICID, I'm grateful for all those who contributed to this process. However, I must especially, like my colleagues, recognize our team in CAICID Vienna and beyond who put their efforts, really immortal efforts, in an instrumental way throughout the processes and all the phases. Thank you all for your patience and the flexibility. Now we'll listen to the statement that was agreed upon by the partners as of all of us saw the need to issue a statement that captures some of the main points that we agreed upon as partners, I emphasize. Thank you.
Statement at the closing of the 2020 G20 Interfaith Forum by the organizing partners. October 17th, 2020. As this year's G20 Interfaith Forum came to a conclusion, the key organizers, His Excellency Faisal bin Muammar, Secretary General of the International Dialogue Center, CAICID, Professor Cole Durham Jr., President of the G20 Interfaith Forum Association, His Excellency Miguel Ángel Moratinos, High Representative of the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, and Dr. Abdullah Al-Humaid, Secretary General of Saudi Arabia's National Committee for Interfaith and Intercultural Dialogue, highlighted central conclusions emerging from the forum. The partners thank the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for its unwavering support for and participation in the G20 Interfaith Forum and extend their high hopes for a successful G20 Leader Summit. The G20 Interfaith Forum concludes an elaborate consultation process that has involved religious and multi-religious leaders and institutions, policymakers, and a rich network of faith-based organizations, and was conducted digitally across 70 countries on 5 continents. Recommendations from this months-long series of consultations on pressing challenges facing the human development agenda were reviewed at the 2020 G20 Interfaith Forum, which concluded on October 17th. The 5-day forum brought together prominent religious leaders from across the faith spectrum, interreligious leaders, and distinguished members of faith-based organizations, as well as government officials, senior officials of United Nations entities, opinion formers, and more than 2,000 participants from all over the world to debate a wide array of issues ranging from hate speech to COVID-19 to gender parity and economic displacement. In these trying times, when the scourge of COVID-19 is causing unprecedented global economic and social dislocation, policymakers should recognize that for over 80% of the world's population, the prism of a faith tradition affects day-to-day life, norms, and relationships. Religious leaders in many parts of the world go far beyond conducting worship and pastoral oversight. Their leadership exemplifies the spiritual and practical ideals of charity, security, common purpose, human rights, and cohesiveness for everyone, including the most vulnerable in all societies. Recommendations considered during the forum are grounded in the experience and wisdom of the world of faith and the experience and insights of religious actors and institutions. Proposals address all aspects of the global human development endeavor as framed in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Priority recommendations will be submitted to the November G20 Leader Summit in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The breadth of topics considered highlights for us the need for more systematic continuing relationships among faith leaders, governments, the United Nations itself, and global opinion formers. Recommendations include the following. 1. Given the relevance of the world of religion to policymaking as demonstrated by the success of this year's G20 Interfaith Forum and the process leading up to it, a central recommendation is that the time has come for formal recognition of the interfaith platform of the G20 Interfaith Forum as an official engagement group in future G20 summits. 2. Systematic engagement of religious actors in policy-making processes at national and international levels offers significant potential to enrich and enhance responses and implementation on many topics, including disaster preparedness and response. 3. The G20 process should have as its constant beacon a focus on vulnerable communities and can benefit from the continuing engagement with the G20 Interfaith Forum to keep this ethical and practical priority always at the fore. 4. In coming days, priority attention needs to be given to engaging religious communities in development, testing, and distribution of anti-COVID-19 vaccines. And 5, the urgent and compelling challenge of protecting the planet raises not only physical but moral and spiritual concerns that religious communities are uniquely prepared to address as partners in global governance instruments. The partners express their thanks to the remarkable group of religious leaders and actors, religiously affiliated institutions, public officials, academics, and other experts, all of whom have contributed their time, their insights, and hard work to make the 2020 G20 Interfaith Forum Saudi Arabia a great success. Your Excellency Faisal bin Muammar, please take the floor for your final remarks.
Of the marathon of organizing and preparing and doing everything we can to reach this moment, and we have now concluded our event. We have this final, statement or recommendations, and we agreed with our partners that we should not have too many, but it could be a quality recommendation, and that's why it is really short. And we are aiming or hoping that it's not going to be kept in the shelves. We are going to do whatever we can to implement it and to seek the approval of all these recommendations. The Qaisid Center and also the Alliance of Civilization and the Interfaith Association and the Interfaith Committee in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are capable of following up all this, the implementation of all these recommendations. I am grateful to all the speakers and to all the people who registered to listen to this event, and I'm grateful to also to our partners who really work with us shoulder to shoulder. You know, it's really for us unique experience, and we are getting closer and closer to international organizations and to the United Nations to enhance the role of religious leaders to support policymakers. Finally, I am deeply grateful to our team at Qaisid, because I've been following their work the whole year and seeing that they devoted their time and their knowledge and their experience to do whatever they can to make this event succeed. They were standing, although it was they were working in difficult environment and circumstances because of COVID-19. So special thanks to all of them, because I know what they did to support this the consultation meetings and also the final event. I especially to Professor Mohammed Abu Nimr and our directors at the center and our deputy ambassador Alvaro Albisetti and whoever participated. I don't want to name all of our team. I'm sure that also from the Alliance of Civilization, Nihal, and the team of the Alliance, and also the team of the Interfaith Association, and also the team of the Interfaith Committee in Riyadh. So I'm grateful to all of them, and I wish everybody a safe life, and also I wish we can see, or we pray that we see each other in Bologna in a good health and a good spirit. Thanks again to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for allowing us to organize this event and to celebrate the success of it. I would like also to thank the media, because the media, they stand with us and they were sharing with us all the information and the coverage of this event. So thanks to everybody who helped us make this event succeed.